The thing with Shutdown, when I look back at it now, is we got a lot of people that were into us, I think because we were young. And now I'm looking at it now, I'm like, how cool is that? Like if I see a band like reaching out, like 15 years old, and these kids are just going to shows, I think it's awesome. But I also think like, I didn't think necessarily we were really that good.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I'm your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you haven't already, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I finally broke 1,000 subscribers, which means that I could possibly start making ad revenue. But I also need to get like 40,000 hours of listening or some crazy shit because they just keep adding all these stupid rules. But the more people that subscribe, the more it's going to help me just expand the reach of that thing. So if you can go do that, that's awesome. Just go on YouTube and type in This Was The Scene and hit subscribe. This is the second compilation I've done with a couple episodes. The last one I did was episode 221, if you want to go check that out after this one. The way this is structured is I'll say what episode the clip is from before each begins, play the clip, and then I'll say what the next one is before the next one, and so on and so forth. This is a good way to get people who just started listening to this to hear some past episodes and get like little bite-sized clips if they want to go back and listen to a full episode. It's also for people who've already maybe listened to episodes and just want to re-listen to a clip because they may have forgot what, that person talked about. Next week, I'll return with new episodes, so keep your pants on about that. And thanks to all the new people who just started listening to this thing. I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from people. Either they message me on Instagram or they're commenting on posts on Facebook. It's just really cool to see that, and people really dig this. And here are the episodes I pulled clips from before we start the episode. Andy from Kill Your Idols, episode 140. Scott from Tripface, episode 180. Brian McTernan, episode 216. Mark from Shutdown, episode 179. And Monica Ebley about her days working at Victory, episode 206. Lastly, I started doing whiteboard animation, so if your marketing department has recently said, hey, we need a whiteboard animation or an explainer video or a logo animation, then you can email me at mike@drive80.com, or you can go check out my website, drive80.com, drive80.com, to check out some samples. That's all I got to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Let's kick this off with Andy from Kill Your Idols, episode 140. Who came up with that design, the skull?
There was this guy, Mike Walter. He was in Sheer Terror and Ludacris. He was in Kill Your Idols for a fairly short period of time, but he's the one that came up with it. And it just stuck. We never knew it would stick. We were kind of just like, we just thought it was kind of funny. It was a skull, but it was completely inoffensive and nothing like intimidating or like tough guy about it or anything like that. There was just something, it was cool yet goofy enough that we just really liked it, and that it just, people started getting it tattooed, and it became our logo by default. Like our earliest stickers and shirts don't have that skull on it. It has other stuff on it.
Well, you guys didn't even add that to your releases until No Gimmicks Needed, right? Or was it added to any other artwork before that, like for albums?
Yeah, it's on our first. It's on the first record we did, but like it's not on our demos or all the first runs of T-shirts that we made. By the time we made the first record, that was the first place it appeared. It was the cover of the first record, and there was like an insert that came with the record that had like a bunch of little skulls drawn all over it.
So when you guys were like behind the scenes and going to shows and things like that, or like going to your shows, was there a conversation that you were having inside the band about the things you wanted to say on stage, or the things that, just the morals you guys had, or did that just come naturally without you guys having to talk about it as a joint unit?
For the most part, it came natural. Anyone that was ever in the band pretty much gave me free rein to talk on stage because they knew that I wouldn't misrepresent us, really. I mean, I can't say I really spoke for everyone about everything, but as far as like the punk ethics and stuff like that, anyone who was in the band pretty much shared them. I mean, that was a conversation before they would get in the band. But I never really said, I mean, there might have been some specific things here and there where I said, tonight I want to talk about this, but it wasn't like I would run it past them. A lot of times I really didn't know what I was going to talk about. I would go on stage, and again, some nights I was so nervous I had to force myself to talk, and I'd just be rambling about, stuff that made no sense probably. And like I said, I would just force myself to talk to try to let people know who we are. So I might have just explained why I wrote a particular song or something.
Next up, we got Scott from Tripface, episode 180. Were any labels at the time trying to like court you guys?
100%. And I mean, that was kind of the downfall of the band. So, we've got a manager, we've got Tyler booking us, and he's getting us shows all over the place. Those guys were really proficient musicians. I mean, Jay really wanted to have a career as a guitar player, and, Dave went on in music later on as well. Those guys really wanted to kind of make that next step. And for me, that was something that I wasn't comfortable with. We were kind of courting some of the bigger independent labels at the time, and also courting some of the bigger hardcore labels at the time. And I was really pushing for the bigger hardcore labels. They were pushing for some of the bigger metal labels that were kind of dipping into hardcore, making sub labels. So there was a lot of courting going on. I mean, we were playing bands, we were definitely playing shows and being scouted by labels. And that was a pressure that I couldn't personally handle. I mean, that was kind of the downfall of the band, because I was just like, I don't want to do this as a career. Like, this is just huge stress. We played a show with VOD and Madball at, what was the Roseland? I forgot what they call it now. And it was a sold out show. And I'm like, all right, we're playing a sold out show, but we're opening. So we're probably going to play to like 800 people. And we showed up, and there was a line around the club, and, we get in and we set up, and the curtain opens, and the show was sold out when we went on.
Jesus.
And the curtain opens, and there was probably like over 1,000 kids there. And I am sure we had a really good set, but all I could say is at the end of the set, it was just one big anxiety attack. And oddly enough, Dave wasn't there. Dave got caught in traffic. Luckily, Ryan, who played bass for us on tour, was there. So Ryan was playing bass. We had 2 labels there that were scouting us. Everybody was all psyched. And I still remember, all I can remember from that show was the curtain opening and me being like, going off and doing a good performance, but being like, at the end of the show, I was just like, I can't, if this is what we're going to do every night, I can't be the singer. And was kind of the downfall, and that additional pressure, we made it as far as I wanted to go. And now now there's a pressure to drop out of college. How do I have this conversation with my mom, who's like scraping by, 2 jobs to put me through college? And I'm going to say to her, hey mom, I'm going to take a year or 2 off so I can go tour with my hardcore band. That was like a pressure that I couldn't handle personally. Just could not handle at all.
And you were what, 23 at the time? 24?
Yeah, I was 23, 24 at the time. I was, a junior in college, or sophomore in college. And it was just, I have severe, that I've dealt with later on in life, but I had severe social anxiety that I dealt with at shows by either being the singer who went off or being the kid who was there to see the show. I was the Energizer Bunny, stage diving, dancing as hard as I could, singing along to every band. And it was more of I can't handle being around all these people. So I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to turn it into just going off. But now I'm in a band, and I got to talk to people after the show. I got to do an interview for a zine. I got to talk to, this other band. I got to talk to these people from labels. And I couldn't, it was really hard to operate in that space. I'm glad I did it because it prepared me for adulthood and later in life, but it was too much. And, I was hard to be around. When someone's having an anxiety attack and you don't know it, you just come across as not the nicest person because your heart's racing, you're dizzy, you feel like you're having a heart attack. You're going to be short with everybody. You're going to run away. You're going to hide in the van because it's like, am I having a heart attack or am I just, what the hell is wrong with me? And, we just reached that point in the band where my mental health couldn't handle what we were doing.
Next is from Brian McTernan's episode 216.
When I need a break, I take a break. And back then, that was not a thing.
How'd you recognize that, though, back then?
It took me a long time. Sometimes, it's funny because I think referencing Hot Water again, it's amazing that we're so close and that we've made all these records, because the first record, my my wife tells this amazing story of the first time she ever met Chris Wallard, she came home from school and he was standing outside smoking a cigarette. And she said, "Hi." And he said, "Hi, your husband's a fucking asshole." Or your boyfriend or whatever it was. And we were, there were fireworks on that record. When they left, there was no part of me that thought like, oh, we're going to work together again. Those guys are great and they're very mature people and they're very like soulful people. And they ended up going on a tour that was like Cave In, Thrice, and Hot Water Music. It was like a Brian McTernan tour. I went to the show and we just talked. Like we just talked super openly about like the things they were unhappy about. Like kind of like, and I kind of said to them, well, hey man, if you don't have the songs written and you don't have the lyrics written, it makes it stressful. And then we're fighting and like things are whatever. And it's so funny because it went from this like argument to like, oh, actually, we really like each other. And there were more things that were good than bad. We decided that like next time they were like, well, why don't you come to Florida? We could like work kind of on our turf a little bit. They were able to say to me like, hey, when we want to get a weird sound or do something weird, we want to do that. And that's important to us. Or like, or if we want to whatever. And I was able to say to them like, hey, your lyrics are important. And like leaving that until the end to get written, we never know what we're sitting on. We don't know what the vibe of the record is. And you're running the risk of like, if you don't get it and it's not right, like the record could be bad. So like they committed to me that they were going to have everything written, and I committed to them that I would be like more friendlier about like more respectful about things I thought they could be doing better and like more adventurous with the kinds of sounds we were getting. And I mean, honestly, I look back at that and it's like I grew so much in that one conversation. It was things I needed to hear, and it was from people I really respected. It's amazing because we're 23 years into making music together at this point. When they walked out, I thought we would never talk again.
Up next, we got Mark from Shutdown, episode 179.
It's like I always tell people, like, we didn't like just wake up and get signed to Victory. Like, we were a full functioning band for 4 years before that, touring and putting demos, 7 inches, this, that, and the other. But I basically that summer after that show, my parents began to open up and let me go to more shows. Now I'm in high school, so the freedom is starting to get out there. My dad was in the Army, so he was very strict, but at the same time, it was like, as you become a man, you earn, the respect and you earn the credibility to be able to go out and stay out late. You kind of have to earn it. So when I was in high school, I told my dad I was straight edge, and I said, Dad, I'm not into drugs. I don't drink. I'm really into this music. I love this culture. And, I'm starting my band, and my band is Shutdown. And my dad thought it was so cool. And my dad's like, okay, what do you need from me? I said, I just want you to tell me I can go to the shows. And, I promise, like, whatever you tell me to be home, I'll be home. And my dad's like, done. You got my approval, And I remember having this conversation with my dad. My mom was always like reverting it to my dad because her answer was always no. My dad was like, okay, let's see how it works, So I think from that conversation, I started going to like every single show that there was. I mean, I could tell you, like, if there was a show in the city, it didn't have to be a big show. Like, I was at the show. I became like enthralled with all things hardcore music, carpooling with kids to go to shows at the Pipeline in New Jersey. And what I would do at that time is we had a demo and we recorded a demo. We made about 200 demos, and I would take the demos, we paid for them ourselves, and I would bring them in my JanSport backpack, which I had at that time, and I would just hand them out to people. And I would literally, I had no problem walking up to a complete stranger, giving them my demo and saying, hey, check this out. We're a New York hardcore band. We're a young New York hardcore band. That is literally how I started like getting our name out. Maybe like, I don't know, a dozen shows into going to shows doing this, I saw Rick from 25 to Life, who at that time was like the ultimate distro. He said to me, what are you guys' plans? Like, I'm starting this label called Back to Basics Records, and I want to put your 7-inch out. He goes, I want to do You and Indecision. I want it to be my second release. My first release is going to be, I think it was Crutch, and you guys could be my second release. And he was like, are you in? I was like, hell yeah, we're in. Let's do it. That came probably within about 6 months of us starting the band. And then once that split 7-inch came out, we started seeing that like Rick had so much distribution at that time that like, just those 2 songs, like we started noticing like people had this, and we started playing all these different shows, and it really is like almost like a kind of like the butterfly effect from there, because everything just kind of like spreads out. Like you just start meeting so many people at once, and you start to meet people that everybody's like you, and it's like, wow, I really love these people. Like everybody's super cool, and they're not like me. Like they don't look like me. They don't talk like me. We just all share the same love. I started making friends and networking, and I really feel like pre-social media, like pre all these like digital marketing and all this, I feel like I was like the expert ultimate like marketing person for my band, because I went to every show, I gave out free music, I made copies of flyers, and it's almost like a long lost art now because of the way technology's advanced, but like I was very hands-on with Shutdown, and I feel like now that I look back at it, I think that had a hand in why we did well back then.
Well, one thing too. So, I mean, I was gonna say like I'm sure it sounds like you're massively charismatic and just walking up to people when you're not selling them something like, here, take this for free, and you're also a part of it. You're living the straight edge life, like you're embedded in that whole thing. So that's gonna come across to people. And then, so I guess those leading to my question is gonna be, you love that lifestyle up there. You love all these bands. When you start hearing what you're putting out as a band, like, were you confident when you were walking around and giving the tape out to people? Like, yeah, I believe that we fit in this whole thing.
Not at all. I thought we were terrible.
No
Yeah,
shit.
I really thought we were terrible.
Lastly, we got Monica Ebley about her days working at Victory, episode 206. The time that Tony had a meltdown and took away our soda machine because he couldn't find a spoon.
This story is classic. It's my favorite one ever. It was lunchtime or whatever, and a bunch of us had gone to the Cobra Lounge, which was it's still next to where the Victory office were. We were having lunch, and, Tony sends an email. He's like, so we had a communal kitchen at Victory, and it was nice. It had a microwave and a toaster and like plates and bowls and shit. And there was a dishwasher, and it was our responsibility to load the dishwasher, and like people, weren't great at it because everybody's 24 to 27. And we're at lunch, like minding our business, and we get this email from Tony, and he is flipping the fuck out because he can't find a spoon. And he is just like, you guys are insolent, ungrateful assholes. This is bullshit. I put all this stuff in here for you guys, and I can't find a goddamn spoon. And he is losing his fucking cool. And like, I was at lunch with like 2 other people, and one person was like, I'm going back, because she just didn't want to be gone for too long. And I was like, I'm not going back. Because it was lunchtime. I was like, fuck this. I'm not cutting my lunch short. I will go deal with Tony's temper tantrum later. So finish lunch and like go back to my desk, and I'm going about my business. And like, we had, like any record label, we have these big coolers like by the front with all the free Red Bulls that we got and all the big, the monsters and shit. But Tony was nice, and he did stock Coke and Diet Coke for us. And it was just like a bodega fridge, And the next thing we know, I'm minding my business, I'm on the phone, and I see somebody from the warehouse with a dolly, and he is wheeling, again, the layout of the office is there's a center aisle, and all the cubes are on the left and the right. And I see this guy from the warehouse wheeling the soda machine, like the soda thing, into Tony's office. And we're like, what the fuck? And then 5 minutes later, there's this email. He's like, until further notice, if I can't get any respect in this goddamn office, you can't have any fucking soda, and like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, if you want utensils from now on, you bring them from home. And this story gets even better because it led to a firing. So that happens, and everyone's just like in shock. And now this will tie into another story about Tony reading our emails. Some of us were on an email thread, and like Tony had his favorites. Like there was definitely people at the label that could take a shit on his desk, and Tony would be like, excellent work, you're the best. And it was 9 times out of 10, it was male. And, they could do no wrong. So we were on a thread with 2 other people or 3 other people, and we're just like laughing about this. We're like, can you believe this fucking just happened? And like one of my coworkers like sent an email. She's like mocking Tony, where she had like a toilet on wheels. She's like, as of today, there are no bathroom privileges. If you have to go, bring it from home. And like, the other coworker responded, as of today, I'm selling, 40s from my desk. 20 bullshit, right? I'm like, okay. And I'm on this thread, and I'm just like, all right, this is whatever. I'm not really jumping in because I don't know why. The next morning, he calls in the girl who had sent the email about the toilet into his office. And he has her email that she had been sending printed. And he hands it to her. He's like, did you write this? And she's like, oh, God. Meanwhile, also on this thread is like the golden person, like whatever. And she's like, yeah, I wrote this. And he's like, what the fuck? Why would you? She's like, it's a joke, Tony. He's like, it's a joke? You think this is a fucking joke? And he's like screaming at her. And like, he's like, get the fuck out of here. You don't work here anymore. Like, you think everything's a joke? And this is crazy. She's like, you are a joke, Tony. I give her excellent props for that.
Oh my God.
He chased her down the fucking hallway, like, and out of the building.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He stopped by, like, I think there was like 3 doors that he had to go through, but by the time she got to the staircase, he stopped. But he definitely chased her through the office, down the hall, and like through the first set of stairs.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. I might make some more in the future. If you do like them, just let me know in the comments on Instagram, or you can email me at thiswasthescene@gmail.com. That's all I got to say. So until next time, take care of yourself and each other.